Welcome to the January 29th, 2017 Guitar Blog episode on using guitar solos to develop scale patterns. One of the most frustrating and often confusing areas for guitar players will tend to be the application of scales. It's easy enough to do a quick Google search and find a few hundred articles covering guitar scales with patterns on the neck and shapes all across the fingerboard. That's the easy part. The tough part is understanding how to apply them over a group of chords. So in this lesson, we'll reverse engineer 16-bar guitar solo and examine how the chord changes were covered using both major and minor scales out of the key signature. Now, once we're done, you should have a whole new perspective for how scales are realistically applied over chord changes to create a guitar solo. Well, before we start our studies of the first 8 bars of our major portion of the guitar solo, I needed to bring you up to speed on the major fingerboard patterns for the major scale. So what we're looking at in front of us here are the 5 patterns of the major scale laid out on the guitar fingerboard. And what's important to understand is these circled dots that you see, those are the root notes. Now, these scale types, they're basically able to be moved around anywhere that you'd like them to be placed. And wherever the circled dots are located, that's the naming note of the type of major scale that you're going to have. If we need F major scale, like we do need in the first 8 bars of our guitar solo, we need to lay out these circled dots all across on F notes, and that way we'll be situated correctly to be able to match the key center and all the chord changes to be able to solo. Now, if you're unfamiliar with these shapes, I'd highly suggest that you really put a lot of time and effort into studying and practicing these different octave patterns of major scale shapes. And once you get good at them, you can even take them further and start adding more complex durations and sequencing ideas, and then placing them into improvisation tracks, and really try to get them very automatic and solid for you in your guitar playing. But what we're going to do is we're going to use selected patterns of these 5, and we're going to study how they've been utilized to create the first 8 bars of our guitar solo. Now, the guitar solo itself has the first 8 bars in the major key, the second 8 bars are going to go into relative minor, and at that point we're going to shift over to showing you different minor scale pattern layouts, and you'll get acquainted with those as well. So if you do need to, stop the video, make copies of these patterns, and start studying this information. It's really important to get it down. What we're going to do next, though, is we're going to head to the studio and we're going to work through example number 1 and example number 2, which will be the first 8 bars separated into 4-bar chunks, so that you fully understand what's going on with the application of these patterns and how we're utilizing them on the fingerboard to create the melodies and so forth. So let's head to the studio next and start going through the first 8 bars of our major key portion of the guitar solo. Well, let's get started here by taking a look at the first 4 bars of our F major solo. It's going to be bars 1 through 4, and it goes like this. All right, so that was the first 4 bars. That's what we're going to be looking at initially here, and we're going to begin working through our solo by just analyzing these ideas here. The solo, by the way, is 16 bars long, and it's going to be divided into 2 separate parts. Part 1 is going to be the first 8 bars, and it's going to cover the major tonality of the key center, and the phrases found in bars 1 through 4 operate out of 3 separate scale patterns. These patterns in order are going to be pattern number 1, F major scale, pattern number 2, and pattern number 3. Now, if you're not familiar with those scale patterns, it's really important to get familiarized with them. The pattern number 1 is going to be a 5th position scale layout. Pattern number 2 puts us around 7th there. And pattern number 3 takes us around 10th. All right, so you need to become familiar with those regions, but when we really look at the details of the notes involved here, we're just taking isolated segments of everything. So let's get started in the very beginning here in the solo. There's some pickup notes that take place, and it's rolling off the first string here, going frets 5, 6, 5, and then we're going to slide 6 to 8, coming back to the 6th fret, and that's the F tone, so it's quite strong into our sound of our key of F major. Then what happens is we roll through 3rd string with a hammer on, 5, 7 on the frets there, C to D. Then we come back to the F tone again. And that's going to bring us out of the tonic chord of F into the B flat chord, and then back. So on the B flat, we're having an F tone take place, and that's a nice tone on that chord because it's the perfect fifth. And so F is a nice one in relationship to the B flat, and then we just come back around again to the F chord. Now at the tail end of the second measure there, we're going to have a run that's going to be at a pattern number 2. So what we're doing is on the 3rd string, we're coming along frets 7 to 9, coming into the 10th fret there. So we're getting the notes of D, E, F, coming around to a high G there on 2nd string, 8th fret, and then we're going to do an 10, 11, and 10, coming back around to the F again. So that's 7, 9, 10, and then 8 on the 2nd string, and then 10, 11, 10, and then around to the 3rd string one last time to resolve to the F. That's all out of that F major scale pattern number 2. Now what happens next is we're going to shoot up to the 13th fret of 2nd string. That's a high C up there at the 13th fret. Playing that a few times, pedaling on it with some 16ths into some 8ths, and when we're bringing around to the 11th fret, dropping down, you know, we have the 11th fret B flat, A, and then around to the F again. And now that stuff there, you know, once we've gotten around off that 13th fret, that's all out of the pattern number 3 off the 13th fret there. So pattern number 3 scale for F major. Now, again, you know, there's a lot of, I should say, vertical span to these shapes, but we're really not utilizing that. As you can tell, as the solo is moving along, we're much more vertical in our, horizontal in our sense of how we're moving along the neck, you know. You know, more horizontal work. Horizontal. So, you know, you're just going to get the greatest sense of dynamics out of all the string sets in looking at the span of the neck that way. You know, sometimes vertical is really nice for speed because, you know, you can be in one position and just kind of rip out, you know, just kind of do notes very quickly in one area, you know, because you can just travel vertically to catch all the tones of the scale in a row. But, you know, sometimes when you're soloing and you're really making a really, you know, connected, soulful impression for the tones, you know, sometimes a lot of more lateral work is really the way to go. So that takes care of example 1, where we've covered the first 4 bars of our solo. We'll take a short break, come back in just a moment, and take a look at also what's happening in the next 4 bars to finish off all the information for the major keys. Now, just before we do that, we're going to do a quick screen capture theory lesson, just discussing how everything is set up on the neck, what it looks like in visual sense. We're going to show you some fingerboard dots on where all the octaves are that we're working out of, and give you a really good impression of where these notes are sitting on the neck. And at that point, you'll have a great idea on how this stuff is actually operating on your fingerboard. All right, well, now that we're done the exercise number 1, where you've had a chance to see how the initial F major scale was used across pattern number 1, 2, and 3, what I wanted to do was take a moment out before we went any further and just look at a guitar fingerboard layout, put the tones down of where we were located, and give you a good idea visually on the fretboard of what we really did there. Now, the first thing when we're looking at those first 4 measures of our guitar solo from back in exercise 1 is we want to understand where the roots are. So I'm going to pop up on the screen here some F tones. So we have F at the 8th fret of the 5th string, 6th fret of 2nd string, and then the F over here at the 3rd fret, or 3rd string, pardon me, 10th fret. So now these are the Fs that are utilized scale-wise, you know, pattern number 1, pattern number 2 for our solo. Now we will go a little bit higher, but we did not use any Fs up here, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But let's get started with where we had the initial part of the solo begin in measure 1, which was down in this region of the neck here around 5th position. So the solo started off in measure 1. We had the pickup notes on the 5th and 6th frets of 1st string. We had the F, of course, come in on the 6th fret of 2nd string. Went a little higher up there with the 8th fret coming in. We also had 5th and 7th frets, kind of wrap things up. And this took care of the first measure, but at the tail end of into the second measure, we did have some new ideas happening. So at that point, we had these tones show up out of scale pattern number 2. So we had 7th and 9th frets on 3rd string, including the 10th fret as well. I should mention that this low tone here, I'm just using it as reference, but we did not ever play anything on the 5th string, 8th fret as far as F there. So maybe what we'll even do is just possibly remove that for now. But yeah, at this point we had in measure 2 this group of tones. So we had gone all the way, 8th, 10th, and 11th frets on 2nd string and so on. So that took care of the second measure into the beginning of the 3rd. But at the point of being in the 3rd measure there, we were really moving through the higher region of the neck. So this initial tone of F, I'm going to get rid of it because we're really, removed from that now and into the 3rd measure. All we were really using is the F found at 10th fret of 3rd string, and then we had the tones that are found on 10th and 11th frets, as well as 13th and 15th on the 2nd string. So altogether, we were really just using a small collection of scale tones, from the full patterns that we had looked at when we first started the lesson plan. So, we have I don't want that one there. So I think this is really all we used in the first 4 bars of our F major guitar solo, and this work, we don't need to keep doing this over and over for every 4 measures that we're going to study of the solo. I think this will suffice to get you to fully understand on how these notes are being utilized on the fretboard, and you can do this on your own, and I would suggest doing this work on your own. Start initially from the perspective of gaining an understanding where the tonic notes are for your scale. Build the reference point around where you are on the fingerboard. Essentially, we're spending a lot of time in the mid-neck region of the fingerboard to be able to start our solo here. But, things move on a little bit. We get a little higher in the upper neck region. But if you were to do this work for all 16 bars of this entire guitar solo that we have for this lesson plan, it's going to do wonders for your recognition of how things operate on the neck, and really as well how these scales are applied. You can tell we're not using a ton of notes. We have a small cluster of notes in each region that we use, as we're moving through the measures. And you'll find most guitar solos will be like that. They don't have a ton of notes. I mean, if you're listening to neoclassical metal or, Yngwie Malmsteen solo or some Megadeth solo or something, yeah, they're going to shred out huge long lines across multiple positions of the neck and so on. But, that's really a special type of music, that, we're not going to find in most of your top 40 stuff, and solos in most of your top 40 stuff aren't going to be played like that anyhow. So, everything has its place, everything's context dependent, but I think this starts giving you a pretty good idea on how, we're using the scales to apply them into guitar solos. Small groupings, small clusters of notes in certain neck regions, and that's how it all comes together. And a lot of it actually is phrasing devices, hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, slides, vibrato. All this stuff is really the big-time building blocks of your guitar solos. So let's move on next to example number 2, and we're going to carry on unto the next 8 remaining bars up to measure 8 of our guitar solo. So we've got 4 more bars coming at you in exercise 2. And in part 2 of the lesson plan, that's when we're going to do the remaining 8 bars of the solo, but the solo is going to drift into the relative minor. So we'll move away from F major into the relative minor D minor.
If you want to learn the modes and get a really good understanding for how they can be used musically to write songs, play a solo, or compose melody lines, then you're in luck. My ebook, Using the Major Scale Modes, is a comprehensive manuscript outlining exactly how modes are used in respect to harmony and to compose or improvise melodic ideas. Over 50 pages of scale patterns, example progressions, and music theory all come together to create a comprehensive method on how to use the modes that's easy to understand. Using the Major Scale Modes is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.
Okay, let's get started by just giving a chance to understand what this example 2 section of bars 5 to 8 sounds like. It's in the key of F major, of course, still. And we're just going to take it from the high register end of the neck here out of pattern number 4. We'll drop into pattern number 2, then around pattern 1, and we're going to finish off in pattern 5. Here's how the whole section goes with some harmony behind it. 2, 3, 4. All right, so it's a nice phrase. There's some interesting chopped up 16th note patterns in there, and some double stops and stuff. So it's going to be kind of fun learning this one. And in this section, we're going to operate out of 4 different scale patterns. The patterns are going to descend basically down the neck. Pattern 4, so we'll have the octave outline up there for pattern 4. And then we're going to move around into pattern number 2. And then we're going to move through pattern number 1. And then we'll have pattern number 5. This is really important too when you're mapping your neck, understanding how you're going to maybe play a lead or how you're going to compose a melody. You really should map your neck, understand what the regions are, get to know where the octaves are, and of course study your scales. So, as you probably noticed there, we started with some double stops up pretty high, 15th and 13th frets on the top 2 strings, and then dropping down to the 13 and the 12. So that's pretty high up. That's all out of pattern 4 though. So we do that. Then we're going to move down around. It's actually a little bit more so out of pattern 3 at this point, but the crossover takes us down through pattern number 2. So you gotta remember, pattern number 2, in most cases, we do stretch forward quite a ways there. So, when I'm teaching pattern number 2 scale shapes, 5th string root scale shapes, I'm usually, covering all that range. But, pattern 3 is in between there. So you could think of it kind of a combo of both, but we are dropping anyway, from the B flat and the D, dropping more so into pattern number 2. So that's why I chose to sort of think of it in respect to pattern number 2. So we just do that run, we have the double stops coming through there. So that's 11th and 10th into the 10th and 8th. And then at that point, that's where we're going to make the transition more so into pattern number 1. So at that point, we're going to be on the top string. We're going to have our 6 and 8, and then the 5, 6, 5. So all 16th notes there. And we're just sort of chopping that down, broken 16ths in there, and then finally coming into resolve on that F tone. And I'm calling that out as pattern number 5 because that's that region of the neck that we are tackling, pattern number 5 layout. So that's our root for that 4th string root scale there. So the tonic notes right there. But again, so we're just going like this to finish things off. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is perform the entire solo for you. And then if you're going to be joining me in the members area for part 2 of this lesson plan, you're going to get a chance at that time to work through the second half of the solo, which you will hear. It's going to transition out of the major keys and major tonality, and we're going to shift into the relative minor. So if you're in F major, relative minor is going to be D minor, and that's what we're going to be covering next in the members area. So I look forward to working with you some more on these ideas in the second half of this lesson plan in the members area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch part 2. In part 2, we're going to be studying the second half of this guitar solo as it shifts us over to the minor tonality of this key center. Plus, as a member, you'll also be able to download the handout for this lesson and the MP3 jam track that goes along with it. As well, there are many other professionally presented guitar lessons on the site. There's a full beginner program, full intermediate courses, advanced material, and there's all the electives. And that includes more of these guitar blog lessons, masterclass series, the quick lick series. There's loads of stuff on the site, and I think you're going to get full advantage out of that when you get a chance to sign up and check out all the material on there. So thanks a lot for watching this video. I look forward to catching up with you for part 2 in the members area at creativeguitarstudio.com.
The Creative Guitar Studio Music Theory course helps a student gain vital skills for understanding music theory. It covers interval design, chord construction for both triad and seventh chords, harmonized chord scales, chord substitution, and minor key theory. Each unit comes with a detailed handout with exercises to help learn all the principles. And there's even an answer key to make sure you did each study correctly. Plus, as a bonus, every music theory unit has an accompanying MP3 audio lesson program that you can listen to in your spare time. The music theory course is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com.
Thanks for watching. Click here to subscribe to the Guitar Blog Update YouTube channel and never miss another video. Click here to sign up for your free membership to creativeguitarstudio.com. And if you take out a paid membership, you'll get premium content downloads of jam tracks, lesson handouts, and full access to all the members area video lessons.